and welcome to Here We Are, Brattleboro's community talk show. I'm Wendy O'Connell, and today on our show we have Marilyn Chiarello. Marilyn is the founder of Edible Brattleboro. Some of you may know about this, some of you probably don't. But we've heard about the movement to create more green spaces in our communities, and Edible Brattleboro has gone a step further and started creating gardens in our neighborhoods here in town. They are help yourself gardens, and their motto is grow food everywhere for everyone. It's a great organization. So here we are with Marilyn. Hi, Marilyn.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Yes. Really glad to have you on because I think, like I said, many people have seen the Edible Brattleboro logo around town, which is a beautiful logo, by the way. It's very nice.
Thanks to local resident Tim Thrasher.
Oh, great.
Thrasher Design.
He's a real good designer.
Yes, very good.
Very good. It's beautiful. And so, but I think a lot of people just see it and they don't register or they don't know what it is. So we're going to talk about that. But first, we're going to talk about the fact that you came to Vermont from Long Island. You grew up on Long Island and you were an educator.
Yes, I was. Wanted to be an educator since I was like 3 years old and watched Ding Dong School. Yes, I was born in Brooklyn and we moved to the suburbs when I was 6 years old. And I always wanted to be a teacher because back in those days, there were very few things for women to do.
Nurses?
Nurses, secretaries, and teachers, and I chose teaching. And so that was my path and my passion. For several years, I taught at a psychiatric hospital with young adults. And then I moved to a public elementary school. Yes.
And you did that for a number of years.
Yes.
You also were a vegan chef?
I did that when I rewired from teaching. I don't like to say retired because it makes me feel a little too old, and I just shifted gears. Yes, I was always interested in health and nutrition, and I had shifted my mostly vegetarian lifestyle to vegan right before I retired. And I started studying that and learning, and I started teaching classes and took some culinary classes and went to raw vegan. I did raw vegan for a number of years, and then now I'm just doing vegan and loving it. And I feel so much better. So,
do you?
Yeah.
Well, there's testimony right there, right, for vegan?
Absolutely.
And so you came to Brattleboro in 2013, seeking a rural climb, like many people.
Yes, indeed. I was so eager to get away from the city and the hustle and bustle, and it wasn't until my mom passed that I could really let go of my ties on Long Island and come here permanently. I had purchased a house several years prior to that I rented out rooms to SIT students, and I would come up on weekends. And then I finally said, that's it, time to go. And I settled in, and here I am.
You are.
Yes.
Well, we're glad that you are.
I am too.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit how Edible Brattleboro came to be.
It was early in 2015, so it's about a year and a half after I've been here. And I saw a TED Talk. It came up on my Facebook feed of all places. And it was about growing edible landscapes. And but it was Pam Warhurst did this TED Talk. And it was just so amazing how they just had food growing everywhere in this town. And it was a town similar to Brattleboro. It was about the same demographic, same size in England. And I was so excited about it, I sent a link to Tim Stevenson of Post Oil Solutions. I had been attending the Climate Change Cafe. I got to meet him because I really wanted to get involved in the environmental movement here. And I got to know him, and that was like how I started to meet people here in Brattleboro. And he had already seen it, actually. He had known about this project in England, and he said, look, I'll send it out to everybody, and if you want to fly with it, go for it, So he did that, and we got a number of responses, and within a couple of weeks, we had about 10 interested people, and we got started. And by April, we had our first donation of a raised bed to use at the co-op from Cedar Goods. It's a Vermont company. And that was our first little thing. And by the end of June, we had planted a 4x8 bed at the co-op.
Yeah. Originally, you were thinking of doing this for people who are food insecure. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. But there was no way we could say, only if you have an EBT card can you pick from this garden. So it was help yourself. And Sabine was fine with that. She was our liaison, and we didn't want to compete in any way with what the co-op is doing in selling vegetables. But she understood what our intention was and was fine with it. And they've been wonderful, wonderful hosts.
What did you do for funding at that time?
We didn't have funding, except what happened was I had a conversation with my aunt, who was in her 90s at the time. And I would call her every week to see how she was doing, because she was getting there in age. She was the last of that generation in my family. And I was telling her about this project and that we were getting it started. And she was so excited about it. 2 days later, I get a call that she had a stroke. So I run back down to New York to sit at her bedside with my cousins. And one of my cousins says, "Marilyn, tell me about this project. Aunt Jo was telling me about, edible Brattleboro and what you're doing." And I said, "Oh my God, she told you about it? We just talked about it 2 days ago." And then when everything got settled out, what little money she had left was divided among 7 nieces. And so that was our seed money.
Yeah, that was your seed money.
Yeah. So thank you, Aunt Jo. I know you're up there enjoying what we're doing.
Marilyn, in addition to that seed money, you must have also gone out for grants and other kinds of funding.
Yes,
right?
we did. We applied for a grant through New England Grassroots Environment Fund. So we applied for one in September, and we got it. And we got $1,000. And that enabled us to expand the gardens at the co-op. And we hired a consultant who helped us with design. That was another local person, Emily Davis. And she helped us with design and this method that we call sheet mulching, and we've been using that ever since. We also applied this year to Vermont Community Gardens Network and received a small grant from them.
That's great. And individuals as well have contributed.
Oh, well, yes, wonderful donations.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes.
As Edible Brattleboro, you're creating a seed-to-harvest ecosystem, basically, that nourishes and sustains plants and people and the land and the community. And it's all working together. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Well, as I'm learning more and more about gardening and the importance of, well, I knew about the importance of nutrition and knew about the importance of plant food. I'm learning more and more about how biodiversity is so essential. And we often look at what's above the ground, but we forget about what's below the ground. And about 3 years ago, I was introduced to the whole world of the microbes in the soil. And so part of what we've been doing, which, when we started doing the sheet mulching, I didn't realize that's why it worked, but I learned that the organic matter becomes food for the microbial network in the soil, and they make wonderful soil structure, and they build this beautiful carbon-rich, deep black kind of soil that everyone, really envies and wants. And that's what we've been doing. So we've learned about building some soil. We learned about the importance of that. And as we went along, we started to incorporate, different types of organic matter into our gardens. Most recently, we're starting to use coffee chaff that we get from Mocha Joe's. We've been using mulch hay and things like that, and leaves. We certainly use leaves a lot. I have tons of leaves, and we just got a leaf shredder this year, so we're going to use that in our gardens as well. But that's all you need, and we built these beds right on top of the turf. We never dug. We never dug. And everything is built up.
Well, that's another thing, the idea of a no-dig garden is something that's pretty new, right?
Yes.
And so therefore people can do that wherever they live.
Absolutely. When you till the soil, you break up the structure. So the soil structure is made up of all the glues and snots and stuff. It's like slimy stuff, and makes these rigid structures actually in the soil. Like one of my mentors calls it cathedrals in the soil.
Wow.
So it's all this open space that allows for the moisture to come in and for the air to circulate and for the microbes to move around. And so when you put your shovel in there, you're breaking all of that up. And another mentor had said at one time, I would no longer take a shovel into the soil than I would dig into my dog. So it's a living
Wow.
a living organism there.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that image just makes me think, and it's like, nope.
Very much so. Well, yeah, and I mean, it's really saying something about a lot of things that we don't know anything about, right? And never even, I mean, to not rototill your garden is, unthinkable. But I know that you folks have workshops as well.
Yes.
Yeah, and is that a year-long interest?
Whatever is appropriate for the time of the year. So this fall, we're planning to have a couple of sheet mulching workshops. And we're also going to do something introducing a Johnson Sioux bioreactor, which is a very unusual kind of composting system that makes a very highly fungal compost, and all you need is leaves and space, and you leave it. It's cold composting. You don't have to shovel. You don't have to dig it. You don't have to do anything to it, and you get wonderful compost tea as a result as well. I've never done it. It was developed in New Mexico. We're bringing it to Vermont. There's a few people experimenting with it. I'm bringing one of them down to help, and we're going to create a few here in Brattleboro and experiment with different ways of building it. And so that's something we're going to invite people to come in, and it'll be hands-on, which means it's a work day, but it's also a workshop. So.
Yes, right.
And the same with our sheet mulching. There is going to be some grunt work, but it is going to be a learning experience as well to see the method.
Yeah, and so your workshops are very interactive.
Yes.
And you welcome all people to come to them.
Yes.
And I imagine that that's something that you have in the papers when you're going to be having workshops.
We do. We try to get everything into the Commons at least, and the Reformer. We have someone else who tries to do it on iBrattleboro and the others. We have cooking experiences as well through the winter. I'm thinking about, even come seed time when you're ordering your seeds, maybe doing some seed, just getting together and saying, this is what I have, doing some seed exchanges at that point, so you don't order stuff you can
That's a great
get your hands
idea.
on.
That's a great idea. Plus, if it's February, in the
Right.
middle of February,
The doldrums, right?
It would be nice to get together
Sure.
with people and talk about gardens.
Absolutely, yes.
Your first garden was at the co-op, and you have other gardens now around town.
Yes. Our first garden was at the co-op. Also, one of our founding mothers, I would say, who was originally with the original group, had just moved to Brattleboro, and she wanted to do a gratitude project. And she sought out an organization where she could teach a permaculture class and then implement that. And Turning Point became the site, Turning Point Recovery Center. It's on Elm and Frost, or diagonally from the New England Youth Theater.
That's right.
And so she did her permaculture class, and a couple of the clientele there attended, and they designed the gardens. And she put all of that in. Not too much edible because there was a lot of lead in the soil there. We started to plant only fruiting vegetables because of the lead in the soil. We were concerned about that. And last year we started to put in greens, so we tested the soil, and there was no lead. So the building up, it could be if we dug deep enough, but the roots weren't going that deep. But because we were mounding, it was dangerous levels of lead previously, and now everything was below 10 parts per whatever.
Well, that's another interesting factor in building up,
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
And you have a garden also at Great River Terrace?
Yes, we just, this year we ventured out to do some satellite gardens. So we have several new locations. Great River Terrace has 2 raised beds. So we're growing there, and that was part of one of our grants with New England Grassroots Environment Fund. And we brought in for a coordinator, a garden coordinator. So we have one of the residents there who's getting paid to help maintain the garden. Darlene has been wonderful. She takes care of the garden. She weeds it, she waters it, and harvests when she knows how to do it. So we go in and provide some support. But there's another young man there, Rocky, who is attending the Culinary Institute that Sterling of the Heifers does.
Yes.
And he's into cooking. So he'll take some of the harvest and make something out of it. And just last Sunday, because neither of them ever ate kale before, I went down there to do a wonderful raw kale salad. It's a massaged kale salad with avocado and salt and lemon juice. And I mean, how can you go wrong with those ingredients? And we put it on little crusts of bread and brought it around to all the residents. And Darlene didn't want to taste it. She said, I don't eat avocado. I don't like avocado. I said, Darlene, you can't not eat this. I'm sorry. You have to try it. So she tried it, and she was like, oh my God, this is really good. So she was such an ambassador for this. She went around telling everyone, you got to try this. This is really good. I ate it. It's really, really good. And some of them took 3 or 4. I mean, it was just wonderful. So it was very heartwarming to see that people were trying kale for the first time.
Right. And
we called it pesto. We didn't call it kale salad. We just called it pesto.
That's probably wise. One other thing is you're connecting with farmers through Share the Harvest.
Absolutely,
Yeah, could you talk a little about that?
The Share the Harvest stand, we implemented that. This is our 3rd season. And we just went around to the farmers at the farmers market and asked if they had any produce at the end of the day that they could donate, that we will give away at a stand the next day. And they have been incredibly generous. We have 11 farmers this year, and the Rich Earth Institute is also donating produce from their test garden.
And where's that located?
They're in Brattleboro, up at the north end of town. They're testing, experimenting with urine as a fertilizer, human urine.
Right.
And they had a big grant, and they're doing a test garden now, some that's fertilized with and some without urine. And they just wanted us to explain that to whoever takes the produce. They wanted to be very transparent, and people are really excited about it for the most part. So we've been getting some donations from them, and we also get from local gardeners. And everybody who donates is just so happy that we're so grateful to get it, but they're so grateful that it's not going to waste.
Right.
And the people who come are so grateful because they can't always afford to get produce.
Yes.
And last weekend we had about 40 pounds of peaches.
Wow.
Yes, from a neighbor of mine, you know. Wow. So she was going away and she just harvested a peach. She goes, can I drop them off at your house? I said, yes, absolutely. Well,
and where's your stand?
We set it up in our garden at Turning Point. So we're diagonally across from New England Youth Theater every Sunday from 11 to 1 from the weekend, usually Sunday after July 4th and through October, the end of October. But only if we have the volunteers. We need at least 4 volunteers a weekend.
Yeah.
2 on Saturday and 2 on Sunday.
Yeah. Well, it also brings us to volunteers.
Yeah, yes.
And as you were talking, I was thinking, you have these gardens, they're pretty established.
Yes.
People are getting to know about them. They're getting to know about, excuse me, Share the Harvest as well. But anybody can do one of these gardens.
Yes. Anybody can either help if they don't have the space to do one, or they can actually do one. I was just going to say, we do maintenance at our 2 flagship gardens at the Co-op and Turning Point once a week. So on Wednesdays in the evening from 5:15 to 6:15, we're at Turning Point, and on Friday mornings we do the early bird special, 7:30 to 8:30. We work that garden, and anyone can show up. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, however much time you could give, we're happy with whatever you can offer. In terms of spaces, we'd love, the vision is to grow food everywhere. Yeah. We can't do it alone. Yeah. So if there's a business or an organization that has a little plot of grass that, it's just a monoculture and they really want to diversify it, or if you have a front lawn that you really would like to share with other people as well, we will help you get it set up. We will give you signage and go with it.
That's terrific. That's so great. The vision is to see all these neighborhoods that have their own gardens, or gardens, plural. Yeah, absolutely. It's a wonderful idea.
And trees as well. We planted several trees at the Oak Grove School, Green Street School, and also at Tri Park Mobile Home Community. So we're getting fruit trees out and berry bushes. I have some in a little nursery on my property. We created a nursery at a workshop early this year so that we could start to get bare root plants and get them established, and then we could move them out into the community. We have a big elderberry patch over at the Co-op, some of which we need to move out soon because it's going to get crowded. And that's really producing this year. That went in last year. They were just little sticks, not even a leaf. Yeah. And they were donated by Gino Palmieri from Vermont Elderberry. He was amazing. Yeah.
And the schools as well?
Yeah.
Most of the schools have gardens right now.
All the elementary schools have their own gardens, and this year we, with the help of Derek Jordan, who's a donor, he's a major donor of money for trees, seed money for trees, and we've finally tapped into his fund and have been using that to get trees in public places. And we have a few other sites in mind, so look out for it. We're not sure exactly when it's going to happen. Hopefully this fall we'll get them in.
And will they be in random places in town? How do you choose where they will be?
Well, we target a spot if no one asks for it, and no one has yet, except for Tri-Park. They were the only organization that did ask. They asked if we could plant trees there. But we are eyeballing the municipal lawn. We have to just get the written proposal into to the town manager, and that will happen, I think. I'm pretty sure. We don't know which trees we're going to get, but we will do that. And there's other spots, you know. I think there's a lot of green space in Brattleboro where we can put trees for the public to help themselves. But then it does require some maintenance, especially fruit trees do require some pruning, but that could be pruning workshops, and we can have that people starting to learn that. I've gotten information from the Upper Valley Apple Corps, which is an organization in the Upper Valley, of course, and my friend Kat Buxton is the founder of that, or one of the founders of that, and she's been very good in advising me, and I attended one of their pruning workshops in January, I think it was. We were out there in our boots in the cold and pruning, and it was an experience.
You know, this is really exciting.
It is.
You know, like I said, I knew that you existed, but I had no idea how far in you are. It's wonderful.
Thank
really,
you.
it's wonderful, Marilyn. One other thing I'd like to ask you is, you talked about having a vision, you know, of the community.
Yes.
Is there anything that you would add to that vision?
Oh gosh, food growing everywhere is one, of course. I envision a community where food is available to everyone, and everyone knows what to do with these wonderful vegetable and fruit products, you know. So a people's kitchen comes to mind, and where I would love to be able to have something that we can invite people to come and prepare the food. If they don't have, you know, not everyone has a food processor or a blender or a mandolin, which is really great for thinly slicing stuff. You know, I'm fortunate enough to have built up my kitchen repertoire because I was passionate about that for my whole life. And so I can't imagine not having those things, but to have a kitchen where people could come in and prepare food. I envision doing some batch cooking on the weekends, and everyone goes home with a couple of jars of food, different things that they have for the week. Or even having a value-added product where we can employ people and raise money for Edible Brattleboro as a nonprofit, and someone could get paid for doing that.
Yes.
You know, so these are long-range visions that I hope to be able to achieve. I also envision a food forest and I'm trying to start one on my property right now to diversify the apple orchard that exists there.
And what would that be? What is a food forest?
A food forest is just a very biodiverse system with lots of different levels of plant growth, and everything is supporting each other. And so there's understory crops, there's things that need full sun, there's your berry bushes, there are things that maybe are not really so much for edible purposes, but they might be providing mulch or ground cover and support the ecosystem as well. So it's a big job to tackle. I'm doing one little piece at a time right now. I'm working on a pollinator bed because I want to incorporate the beneficial insects and the pollinators into the garden. And I unveiled several milkweed plants just recently. The field was growing, and I asked someone to come in and just mow around. See, I'd look for the milkweed and please don't kill them. And I discovered 7 monarch caterpillars on the milkweed. Chomping down. So I was really excited to see that. So, and I haven't even put my pollinator garden in yet. So things like that, just really, and have a whole, even a learning center, just dedicating that space to learning about growing food. What is more fundamental than food? And what is more hope in bringing, you know, it just creates hope of growing things. You know, you have to have hope for the future if you're going to put a seed in the ground. You trust that it's going to grow, and you have hope to harvest it and enjoy it. So it's just such a fundamental life force and need that I think I want to just bring it to everyone.
I was thinking about kids too, to know
Yes.
from a very early age where these things come
Where
from.
the food comes from.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that it's a part of their life, but it can be a much richer part of their life, I think, than
Yeah.
once you get out there and start working.
When I was teaching, I was teaching special ed for a while. We had a little sprout business. We grew alfalfa sprouts. Put up the seeds on Monday, harvested it by Friday, sold them to the teachers, and we had a little business going, and we had healthy snacks all the time. And the kids took down a bag of sprouts because it was pizza day in the cafeteria at that time, and they would just pile the pizza up with sprouts and eat their pizza with sprouts.
That is great.
Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah.
simple also, right?
Very simple.
So simple.
Yes.
When you talk about your vision and the People's Kitchen and all that, you are looking for space, aren't you, in town?
I would like, ideally it would be a space that's located perhaps in the Feet neighborhood, Frost, Elliott, Elm Triangle.
Yes, very good.
That's right near our Turning Point Garden. It just feels right there, and that when we moved our stand to that the location there too, it just was very helpful. I think there's a comfort level there. And so, yeah, a place there. Any port in a storm at this point, but I want it to be really accessible.
Yes, no, that is a great location. It's right downtown
Yes,
as well.
it is.
And I know that you folks, you're always looking for volunteers, as we already mentioned.
Yes.
Anything else in particular that you need help with?
You don't have to be a gardener to help. We have so many different things. I would love it if somebody wanted to take over being a webmaster and putting up stuff on our web, or organizing the volunteers. I do all of that. We have a sign-up site, artwork for signage. And there are a number of different ways you could help, or even if you have ideas, or if you have seeds, or if you want to share something, have tools that you don't use anymore, we'll take it, we'll do that. If you have construction skills, actually the Rotary Club is right now helping to build a bench for the garden at the co-op. So that should be installed by the end of September, possibly sooner, I hope. And so we have skills in the community. So any kind of skills, if you think we could use it, we probably can.
You have a website,
Yes,
and
we
we'll
do.
have that information in the credits at the end of the show. But it's a great website, and it's very clear,
Thank
and
you.
it lays out a lot of the things that we've talked about,
Yes.
but also the things that people can do.
Yes,
And the
yes.
initiatives that
Yes.
people can take to either create a garden or come to you for help.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. We're very accessible. My phone number's on there. The email address. I answer the emails. The website has the recipes when we do
Great.
any cooking experiences, which are really a lot of fun.
Yes.
The last one we did, we had 20 people making 3 different recipes, and there were like 7 people at each station, and I thought it was going to be chaos, and it was absolutely the most organized thing I ever did.
Wonderful.
It just
Who
worked-
knew, right?
It worked wonderfully.
Yeah,
It really
you
was
never know.
perfect.
That's
So,
great. Well, Marilyn, this has been very cool, and
Yeah.
I just think it's very exciting what
Thank
you're
you.
doing. Yeah, I think it's
It
really
is.
great and wonderful, of course, for the people to know about it in town.
Yes.
So check out the website. Get in touch if there's anything that you can lend a hand with. Marilyn and everybody else would certainly appreciate it, and it's great for our community.
Yes.
It's so
Thank you
great.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thanks to all of you for joining in today. Check out this project. It really is wonderful, and I think it's things like this, it's organizations like this and people like this who come together that really make for a strong community. And what could be a better thing than to do it around food, something that we all need every day of our lives. We'll see you next week.